FDA has a pretty large recall modernization initiative underway, and we've been able to provide comments back to them on how this could be done so simply just using QR codes, where the traditional method for recall notifications is through a press release. And times have changed, and families aren't sitting around watching the 6 p.m. news in their living room, right? Those days are gone. And so in the case of a product recall, it's really important that we as an industry are communicating those recalls to consumers. Being able to do it through SmartLabel is just one more tool where right at the point of use, you scan the product and you find out, hey, this product could be implicated in a recall. Here's the batch and lot number. And it helps give the consumer some confidence to know what they're looking for and also whether the product that they're holding is safe for their families or not safe. Too often, consumers will hear about some recall and just chuck out everything from that brand, regardless of what else is going on. And so that temptation's there. And so we want to make sure that we're trying to give that confidence back to consumers.
Hello and welcome to The Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US, a podcast in which we explore the mind-bending world of global supply chains, covering topics such as automation, innovation, unique identity, and more. I'm your co-host, Reid.
And I'm Liz.
And welcome to the show.
Reid and I had a really great conversation with Topco and CBA around SmartLabel, what it is, what it can do, what 2D barcodes can do from an information perspective when you're thinking from consumer transparency and all of that information that today's consumer has been asking for, how a quality experience to that consumer is just so front and center for organizations today to be thinking about. We all have been talking about the Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA Rule 204. One of the things that we chatted about was the importance of being able to create and share data in a thoughtful way when you think about that regulatory requirement, and why, when thinking about technology and consumer demands, it's just so very important for organizations to be keeping that top of mind and really thinking about how to best move with today's technology. It was just such a pleasure talking to Rishi and Anne, and we really hope that you enjoy this episode. Anne Rishi, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're really looking forward to having a good conversation about consumer transparency and data and all these things. Before we get started, I would love it if both of you could give us some background on your roles and your organizations, both at Topco Anne for you and CBA Rishi for you. First, Anne, can you just give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Absolutely. So I'll actually start on the Topco side because Topco is not a household name. So to provide a bit of background on what we are and what we do, we're a co-op of about 45 members that are retailers and wholesalers in the grocery space. Our membership breadth spans across all 50 states and also includes a sprinkling of international retailers. When you aggregate all of the retailers together, there are over 15,000 stores that Topco services. So it's a pretty wide breadth. But what do I mean when I say we service the members? Well, it means that we provide private label products. We work with suppliers to develop brands and the private label products within those brands. And we bring those to life for our members. And our members in turn sell those brands and those products in their stores. Because we can aggregate the volume of the members, we're able to obtain better pricing on each of the products. And that allows and helps our members to compete against the national chains that are in their areas. We also provide services to members, things like quality assurance, marketing services, and my world, which is transparency. So that's a little bit about Topco and a great segue into what I do on a day-to-day basis. My role is specifically related to both transparency and sustainability. And so when I say transparency, what I mean is providing as much information as we can to our members and importantly to their shoppers about the products that we procure on their behalf. So that's a very big focus. Another very big focus for me is sustainability. How can we help our members reduce environmental impacts what sustainable solutions are available for them to implement in their respective stores. So I spend a lot of my time developing strategies and solutions around sustainability.
That's a lot, Anne. It was awesome. And I think because you're right, Topco isn't something that I would say, oh, yeah, I know what they are. But you all touch so many stores in the footprint. It just helps give that breadth of everything that you do. Thank you so much. Rishi, Consumer Brands Association, SmartLabel, your background, your turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here. My background is primarily in food safety and regulatory affairs, almost 20 years in primarily food and beverage industry. And last year, I joined the Consumer Brands Association, which is the national trade association that represents the $2 trillion consumer packaged goods industry. Our members employ 20 million Americans and are just a huge segment of the US economy. Within CBA lives the SmartLabel program, which is the program I get to lead, and I'm super excited. And SmartLabel was founded in 2015 and serves as kind of the flagship consumer transparency tool or initiative for the CPG industry. And so, although initially primarily in the food and beverage space, we've now expanded into household cleaning products, personal care products, dietary supplements, even pet food. And so for those brands that are participating, it's their opportunity to share product information using a QR code on product labels. That makes it super easy for consumers to just scan, learn more about the products, and engage with those brands. And so we're super excited to work with the 1,000 brands and 100,000 products that participate in our program, and excited to work with great partners like Anne at Topco to bring that transparency to consumers.
And for our listeners out there, if you have a CPG product like a soda or a bag of chips, and you look at the back and you'll see that SmartLabel QR code, and that's what Rishi is talking about. So like Topco, SmartLabel may not be at the tip of your tongue, but I am pretty sure that each one of you have interacted with it at some point in some way.
For sure. I will say that as I took this role, I started to see smart labels everywhere. And that was not true before. You know, it's like as soon as you buy a car, then you just start to see them everywhere. Same idea.
Exactly, and then you're like, dang, I shouldn't have gotten the color everything else now.
Yeah. Before we jump into some other details around SmartLabel and QR codes and 2D barcodes and all that stuff, I'm just curious, and Rishi, I'll start with you, and then Anne, I'll come to you right afterwards, but what are some main areas of focus for CBA right now? Like big projects or big focus areas that you guys are working on?
Certainly around sustainability. And it's one of the key things that our members are focused on, trying to drive things like more recycling, trying to make it easier for consumers. Through SmartLabel, I'll mention we recently partnered with the Recycling Partnership, and they have a really cool tool called Recycle Check that allows brands who choose to participate to provide their product information. And then when a consumer scans the SmartLabel, they just put in their zip code and find specific recycling instructions for that product where they live, which I think really helps kind of bridge the knowledge gap there.
We've had a podcast just on that where folks don't realize, I mean, like county to county, town to town within the same state. Yes, you can recycle glass bottles. No, you can't. Yes, you can recycle green, but not brown, or brown, but not green. And it's so helpful to have that. It's a constant fight in my family. It's like, oh, what? Pizza box, it's recyclable. I'm like, no, it had pizza in it and there's oil in it. And now you can't. And they're like, what? It's cardboard. So things like that really make a difference and help.
Yeah, it turns out there's almost 10,000 different recycling districts across the country, and the capabilities vary greatly.
Interesting. Anne, what about you? What's going on at Topco? What are some main areas that you all are focused on?
I guess I would answer that in saying our focus is on some basic things and has always been on some basic things. And in the economy that we're in today, those are more foundational and as needed as they ever were. So when I talk about basics, I mean meeting the needs of our members and meeting the needs of their shoppers. And what that always boils down to is providing excellent quality products, making sure there's enough supply of those products, and then offering them at a great price. And we maintain a focus on those three areas always. Nothing, there are a lot of shiny things that we can divert our attention to, but those are the things that make us what we are and make us so invaluable to our members and to their shoppers. So from a member perspective, our focus is on helping them compete and win in their respective marketplaces. And on the shopper side, it's almost a little more personal in an odd way, but Topco has a legacy of commitment to families across America. And especially in very difficult economic times, like we've been in for a little while, families depend on us, and we give them the ability to manage their budgets while stocking their pantries with quality options. So there are millions of things that we're working on within the Topco organization, but there's always that steady focus on providing the basics for our members and for their shoppers, and that always takes precedence over everything else.
I really love the passion in your response. And I'm not joking. I think that it's nothing flashy. We're here to service our members. And I love that. And I will tell you, I took my youngest son to the grocery store on Sunday. We're doing lots of things around the house. And I'm like, hey, we got to get some dinner for everybody. And he was blown away by one pasta brand was 99 cents and every other pasta brand was $2. And he's like, Dad, that's 100% difference. And I'm like, congratulations, high five. Which one we get?
Very astute of him.
Yes.
Very,
Yes.
yeah. I guess he heard me complain enough about the finances.
Then he was like, here, let's get the less expensive one.
Yeah.
Stop complaining, Dad. Yeah. That was awesome. And I've worked with Anne in the past, and just all the things that you do is really cool at Topco. And the three things of a quality product and keeping supply and a great price. And there's so much work that you all do to do that. It's really cool. I started jumping, Rishi, to what is SmartLabel, because I get really excited about SmartLabel and everything barcode related. But can you tell us what SmartLabel is, how it works, the developments that have come over the last couple of years with the recall and the different kind of menu?
So SmartLabel serves essentially as the industry standard for how brands share this data. And so that's essentially all we are, is that we provide the standard, there's a template, and that makes for a great consumer experience, because regardless of what brand, what product, or even what category, all of the product data is presented in the exact same way. And there's core basic data that's required as part of the program. And then there's voluntary data too. In terms of the advancement of the program over time, we've had some great successes with things like the intermediate menu, which provides brands with a little more options of what they're directing consumers to when the consumer scans the QR code. Certainly, SmartLabel is still always the top option there, but brands can talk a lot about maybe a new sustainability initiative or recycling or recipes or that kind of thing. More recently, we've been working with our implementers and also having some great conversations with FDA and other regulatory bodies around being able to do recall notifications through SmartLabel. FDA has pretty large recall modernization initiative underway, and we've been able to provide comments back to them on how this could be done so simply just using QR codes, where the traditional method for recall notifications is through a press release. And times have changed, and families aren't sitting around watching the 6 p.m. news in their living room, right? Those days are gone. And a lot of folks are probably choosing to even tune out the news or even what they're reading online because of all of the other stuff that's going on. And so in the case of a product recall, it's really important that we as an industry are communicating those recalls to consumers. A lot of retailers do a great job. A lot of CPG brand owners do a great job in this. And so being able to do it through SmartLabel is just one more tool where right at the point of use, you scan the product and you find out, hey, this product could be implicated in a recall. Here's the batch and lot number. Where on the package to find the batch and lot number? Because I think, it can vary. It can be quite different. And it helps give the consumer some confidence to know what they're looking for and also whether the product that they're holding is safe for their families or not safe. And I think that's really helpful. Too often, consumers will hear about some recall and just chuck out everything from that brand, regardless of what else is going on. And so that temptation's there. And so we want to make sure that we're trying to give that confidence back to consumers.
How exactly does this smart label work? I mean, I understand QR codes, but like for someone that's out there, they're just starting a product and they have their own QR code and they have a smart QR code or smart label and these other things. I mean, is there a process? Is there a registration? Like, what's the steps?
It's pretty simple. We're really unique in that way where each brand manages and controls their own product data, meaning Anne's not giving me her product data. She manages her product data. And every product has its own individual smart label page. It's just a URL. And that QR code is going to that URL. The Smart Label program provides the template and the structure for how that data is presented to the consumer. And then we work with brands to ensure that product data is being kept up to date, interesting new innovations or integrations, that kind of thing. But it's super simple. It's Smart Label branded QR code on your package that a consumer scans, and they're pulled up to this URL, which has the Smart Label page, which has the product information.
I appreciate you taking us through that. You also mentioned recalls, and recalls to me is kind of food safety, and it's just consumer safety at that point, right? Because recalls happen on non-consumption products as well. But with food safety specifically, are there other things that you're involved with? Is Consumer Brands Association involved with other activities related to food safety? You mentioned the FDA. Are there other projects or things going on? I find the recalls very helpful, but I'm interested if there's more because there's Food Safety Modernization Act 204 that everyone's been talking about. See,
Okay.
Liz, I'm learning. I'm learning from the podcast, Liz.
Yes.
Great questions. Absolutely. I mean, Consumer Brands certainly leads the way in a lot of areas regarding food safety. We're essentially kind of the large umbrella trade association. We work extensively with FDA. We lead coalitions. FSMA 204 is certainly something that our members are working on, working through, working with us to kind of figure out certain aspects. I think certainly there's a lot of education that is still happening regarding FSMA 204. And then there's a variety of other areas like ingredient safety and food additives and nutrition and labeling. And we have a very robust regulatory staff and an engaged regulatory staff. And although I lead Smart Label, I work very closely with that team. And just, again, given my background of food safety and regulatory affairs, those are things that interest me. And I'm definitely looking for ways that Smart Label can play a role in meeting the needs for industry.
Excellent. I appreciate you taking us down that for a little bit.
Yeah, I would say, Anne, when you start talking about consumers having the information they need, are you using the 2D barcode? And also, not just consumers, I guess, but your members. Do you use 2D barcodes to exchange any of that information? If you don't, is that something that you're thinking about using to enhance it?
We are huge fans in the Topco world of SmartLabel. That is the leading and chosen method of being transparent about our products and what's in them and why to our members and to their shoppers. And so every single one of our products, with a couple minor exceptions, have QR codes. And in general, all of those QR codes lead to SmartLabel pages. And what that translates into, because the breadth of merchandise that Topco oversees and manages and procures for our members is incredibly wide. It's center store, perimeter of store, you name it, we procure it. So what that translates into is almost 20,000 products with SmartLabel pages having access through QR codes. So we're huge supporters of that. We're actually focused on enhancing. I've spent the last, I would say, 4 years bringing those SmartLabel pages to life with a great team helping me do that and managing that, even with a third-party provider. We're at the point now where I want to take it to the next level, which was actually the original intent of SmartLabel, providing more information than can ever fit on a package. Obviously, there are some constraints from a packaging perspective. And so we're really going down the path of working with very specific suppliers at this point in time, collaborating to identify incremental information that is not included today on package, but would be very interesting to many shoppers. And so we're looking at collaborating and adding that information into the digital space, which is far more unlimited than the packaging space. We're also focusing on and piloting intermediate landing pages. And Rishi mentioned the intermediate landing page. For those of you that aren't terribly familiar with that, what that is a menu. So today, when you scan one of our products, you scan the QR code and that takes you directly to, in general, the SmartLabel page. If we had an intermediate landing page in place, if you scan that same QR code, instead of going to a SmartLabel page, it would actually go to this intermediate menu that the shopper lands on and then has different alternative places for them to go from that menu. So they can go from there to the SmartLabel page, or as Rishi mentioned, they can go from there to more information about the company's sustainability initiatives or more information about where that product came from and what that journey looked like. So we're piloting with select suppliers, intermediate landing pages, such that we can start to tell really engaging stories about the products.
So it's using something that you already have in place. You've just brought it up to date or refreshed it, and you're building on something and leveraging the technology. I think that's so cool. And it talks to the power of the 2D barcode too, because you can build it all in.
Exactly.
Thinking of packaging, I'm very interested in hearing from both of you because we're just seeing this happen in the space here. But typically packages have the barcodes on the back, but we're looking at more automation and robots doing inventory and consumers wanting to not touch things, but get information. How much conversation are you guys involved with moving a barcode to the front of the packaging?
The front of the package, which is known to us as the PDP, the primary display panel, is incredibly valuable real estate. That's where we can showcase the brand, make the brand statements, put the claims that are most important. That is sacred space. And so, to my knowledge, there's not a lot of conversation today in the Topco organization. Granted, and disclaimer, I'm not involved in every conversation, but to my knowledge, there hasn't been any conversation about moving that to the front of the package.
Fair enough. I really appreciate your comment on this. And Rishi, what's your take on it?
I tend to align with Anne on this. It's difficult to try to get any kind of changes made to front of packages, even for our industry, as we think about things like front of pack nutrition labeling, which even trying to get that onto the front of packages has been something the industry's worked on for many, many years. And there's some adoption. I know, again, FDA is thinking about what should front of pack labeling look like. But to bring the QR code to the front could be interesting, but I don't know that we're there yet. But who knows?
Well, like they say, hope is not a strategy, but it is a strong feeling. And I hope that you'll get there. Things will change, So maybe Gen PDQ, the next one to come out. But the PDP, for all you folks, that's the new acronym of the day, Primary Display Panel. All right. Anne, you mentioned before working within this digital space and understanding that SmartLabel's QR code, it's digitizing information, landing pages. In essence, it's the phygital, right? It's the physical world is the QR code. And once we interact with it, it takes us to the digital world, which could be endless amounts of information. With that being said, what are some tips or recommendations that you could have for small and or large retailers to help themselves grow and succeed in this new digital age?
The short answer from my perspective is whether you're large or small doesn't really matter, but you have to participate and get in the game in terms of omni-channel messaging. My longer answer, though, is that with today's technology, a brand can engage with a shopper in a much more personalized way and can actually start building connections long before the shopper walks in the door. And in fact, I would argue that stores can't any longer just sit back and invite the shoppers in. They need to evoke some kind of emotional connection to entice that customer to enter their store and give that motivation. And that actually circles back to the work that we're doing around intermediate landing pages and providing storytelling about our brands and our products so that we pique the interest of people so that they'll walk in the door and look at those brands and products.
I love it. And we've heard from others too. It doesn't matter if you're large or small, you have to get in the game. And there's no advantage to one or the other. It's this playing field you have to engage in. Rishi, what's your take on this? Any tips or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for private label products, right? So retailers that carry private label products, there's some inherent challenges with trying to build a brand story that's recognizable to a consumer, particularly when that product is sitting right next to a national brand on the shelf. But there's a lot of benefits to private label, and we've seen that growth across industry. And so, just as Anne mentioned, being able to tell that private label brand story is so, so important, and to do it in a really easy to use kind of way and in a kind of structured way is also really important. And to be part of this wide, vast industry program, I think it helps lend a lot of credibility. Reid, you mentioned there's a lot of value in these products already. Your son recognizes that certain products are of higher value. And so I think what's important then is to also communicate that it's not a lower quality product and that these are still high quality products made safely and nutritiously by people who care, and just being able to communicate that. And that's all awesome information that a lot of these retailers have and these private label brands have. They just can't fit it all on the label. And so again, there's an opportunity to be able to share that in that sort of phygital way.
Unfortunately, we are running a bit out of time. Reid and I, though, do ask our guests 2 questions at the end of our conversations. So I will ask the first one, Anne, I'll ask it to you, and then Rishi. What is your favorite technology that's out there right now that you use either in your daily personal life, your daily work life, or a smurge of both?
Smurge of both, I'll answer. My favorite technology at the moment is something so simple and yet so beautiful. It's an app that you can download on your phone called Flash Food. Grocery retailers, and obviously I know about it because I'm in the grocery business, but grocery retailers partner with Flash Food, which is an app that heavily discounts products that are nearing their use-by dates. So grocery stores put these items on the app, and shoppers can come and buy these quality products at huge price reductions. And what is so fascinating about this is that the end result is a win on so many levels. It's a win for the shopper who's able to get discounted food. It's a win for the retailer who has less food to dispose of at the end of the day. And it's a win for the environment because less food is going into landfills. So good results all around.
That's excellent.
I have so many questions that we don't have time for right now. And I'm going to do some Googling after this. That's fascinating.
Definitely.
Rishi, favorite technology?
Completely in a different direction, but mainly just for me. I have a 5-month-old, so I've been spending a lot of time on the road, which means I've been spending a lot of time on the camera for the crib. It's a Nanit. I spent a lot of time on the Nanit app. But regarding our industry and CPG, similarly, there's another app called Too Good To Go, and that's for restaurants that have extra product or meals, maybe leftover ingredients at the end of the day. Too Good To Go is another great app to help reduce food loss, waste, provide value to consumers. And certainly in these economic times, I think everyone can appreciate a good value. So that's an interesting one. And then hardware-wise, I really love my Samsung folding phone. Anyways, I'm really big into gadgets.
The phone is coming back. The flip phone. I love it. Okay, so the other question we ask, and this is just more of a philosophical type of question, but it's something that's blown your mind. And it could have been something when you were young, could be something currently, but just something that's just blown your mind and you look at the world differently now because of it. So Anne, what's something that's blown your mind?
Well, I heard on PBS today as I was driving into work that today is actually the 1-year anniversary of ChatGPT being available to the public. And I would say that is mind-blowing, and it is. But that's actually not the one I'm going to choose for this answer because there are many people that know a lot more about ChatGPT than I do. I would say the one thing, given that I'm very much entrenched in the sustainability world, a trend that I have seen and watched over the last decade is the energy transition that has been sort of at a crawl pace over the last decade and has just escalated so dramatically just in the last few years. The progress made in solar and wind and electric vehicles is just astounding in just the last couple of years. That transition will impact so many lives in so many ways. And it's just been so fast, certainly not as fast as we need it, but it's moving for sure.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And Yeah, ChatGPT, it's been 1 year. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like, it feels like a year and it feels like forever.
Yes.
Yeah. Rishi.
Yeah, so it's generative AI, so not ChatGPT specifically. This is a plug, but I have zero connection to this company. But I was at a conference recently, and this company was developing long form articles for a brand and for every specific product that they make based on the most frequently asked questions that people type into Google. So, for example, they might say, what's a low sodium hot dog that I could buy, or something like that, right? And so if you make that product, if someone searched for that, your product probably is not going to rank very high, because what ranks high when you ask a question like that are like news articles. So what this company does is they use generative AI to just write articles based on your product data and questions that people ask. They're full page articles, and then immediately yours becomes the top answer, and then with an option to buy. And I was just like, that is fascinating. I was at this conference and they had literally done this for every attending company at this conference. So whenever anyone came by their booth, they're like, hey, let me show you all these long form articles that we already have written for you. It was super cool. The company's called Own It. Again, I have zero affiliation with them, but that to me was just mind blowing, because that's how people search now, right? You ask questions. People have gotten used to asking questions using natural language in Google. And so being able to have an article that meets all of those requirements was super interesting.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. It makes me think that, Liz, we need to buy a campground, and in 10 years, people will be paying thousands of dollars to have analog, non-digital experiences.
Seriously. This has been so great. And I've worked closely with both Anne and Rishi, so it's so great to be able to talk to you both today. I know, Reid, it's just fun to watch all of like the light bulbs go off with the four of us chatting and new things that we've learned. And it's just been really fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it thoroughly. And I want to thank you both for taking the time out of your days to be with us and to drop some knowledge with us and our listeners. It's always helpful. And Flash Food app and Too Good to Go and my new acronym for the day, the PDP. Somebody's going to come up to me and be like, Reid, you didn't know about that? I was like, yeah, I know, but I'm not in the club. I don't carry the card, So this is super helpful. Well, thank you both again.
Thank you. It's been great.
Thank you. Yeah, fastest 30 minutes of my day.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe to our feed and explore more great episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to share and follow us on social media. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.